For days, Hurricane Florence was set to come here to Charleston, but through the grace of God, we dodged a bullet. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down one-on-one with WeatherFlow meteorologist Shea Gibson. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores and listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Shea Gibson, it's so good to meet you.
Likewise, nice to meet you, Quintin.
Oh, I appreciate this greatly. So here we sit. It's been, I guess, 3 days now since Florence has passed, and obviously Charleston dodged a bullet through the grace of God. A week ago to right now, where's your state of mind?
My state of mind from a week ago was of concern. I was very concerned that we had a chance of getting hit directly by this hurricane. And so now it's sort of a sigh of relief, but it's also a constant reminder that we live along the coastline, how dangerous these storms can be, and we're seeing that right now in eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, let me take you there, because obviously people are still being rescued. You still have a couple of interstates and rivers being overflowed. How long will they actually get away from Florence, actually?
You know, we saw that with Harvey in Houston, and the long-term effects for the Texas area. And you know, we've seen this happen before. We saw it with Matthew.
Right.
We saw it in October 2015 flooding,
Right.
the effects of the river swelling.
Right.
And it's hard to gauge exactly how much time it's going to be, but I posted something earlier that it could be weeks or even months before these folks get back to any sort of normalcy. We saw after Matthew, portions of eastern North Carolina and all the way down towards Conway, South Carolina, stayed flooded for months. So this is a devastating event for many there that will be long-term.
Yeah, my brother actually goes to coastal Carolina, and he won't be back probably until next week there. I know the school's closed for the entire week. And our thoughts and prayers go to those folks up there. But let me talk to you about the rainfall amounts. How much are there right now from eastern North Carolina to really Georgetown?
Well, there's been recorded amounts of up to 35 inches and a couple of isolated weather gauges that read up near 40 inches of rain. So the NHC was dead on with saying 20 to 30 inches of rain in isolated areas of 40 inches, and they called it 3 days out, which fell right in line. The devastating part about having this much rainfall is that the watershed effect from the mountainous areas where that rain spread eastward into the mountains, westward into the mountains, and then filtered down through the rivers and swelled out. So yeah, again, the rainfall amounts are just devastating for those folks.
And let me get back to, I guess, politics. Obviously, people are still complaining that the governor called an mandatory evacuation early. When you look at your models, what says in your mind he did the right thing?
Well, it's kind of a tough question there. You can see it from both sides that one could argue it was a little early, one could argue it was, you know, we couldn't wait until it was too late. We saw with Floyd in 1999, what happens if you wait till 2 days out to evacuate an entire coastal city. And so our population, our density is much heavier now than it was then. And so they're erring on the side of caution by issuing these mandates earlier in these evacuations because it takes so much manpower to get it all done. So the concern there is when is it safe enough to do it, or when is it going to be far out enough to do it?
And let me go back to another topic that everyone talked about during this entire ordeal with Florence, that is, was it the winds or was it the flooding in your mind?
Flooding is always the most dangerous aspect of a hurricane. The winds are sort of a secondary threat in the whole thing, believe it or not. You think the destructive winds are going to be the most highly impacted areas by the highest winds, but really it's the rain and the flooding that gets the most. So a lot of talk in the meteorology community right now about maybe trying to lean on having categories for flooding because the wind speeds don't tell what a hurricane can do. We just saw that with the stalling system over the mainland USA.
Why is Florence taking so long to get out of the Carolinas in your mind?
Well, that is really due to the fact that there's such a weak steering mechanism in place. We had high pressure to the north. There was a lot of uncertainty as whether or not it would amplify to the north or if it would weaken. There was another component to that to the northeast of the system that was slowly driving it towards the coastline. It slowed down as it reached the coastline because that high pressure weakened. And normally we have some sort of troughing mechanism or a cold front that will sweep through, or an upper jet flow that will pull that storm off into the ocean. But this one was different because it was just the timing of it pushed it right into the coast during the weak period in the climate pattern.
Yeah. And another talk right now is about those models again. Which one do you trust? Which one did you trust for Florence? The GFS or the Euro?
Well, those are two major players, but there are many other models to consider. We can't just consider those two. There's
Okay.
the UCMET, there's the NAM when it gets a little higher resolution. When you get closer in time, there's a lot of other models to consider. But the Euro didn't quite perform on its northerly track as the GFS did this run, and they're still compiling the numbers, so it's hard to just gauge on one model. We have to sort of take it all into account. And I do want to mention that the NHC did nail this forecast track up to 6 days out, almost within 2 miles of right down the middle of the track.
Wow.
So hats off to them for it.
Absolutely. And let's go forward. What's next for us? Are there any tropics or any hurricanes, tropical storms in our future?
Not for the foreseeable future. We look okay right now. We usually gauge that on 5, maybe even 7 days out, and we're looking at the tropics. But we still have a little bit left in the season. We get one more spike in October, and then things start to really wind down towards the end of October and into November. So the season does go through November the 30th.
And I failed to mention this, but you obviously are a meteorologist for WeatherFlow. Can you describe Shea Gibson, the meteorologist?
Well, yeah, I started working with WeatherFlow in 2012 as a wind forecaster. And that entails sailors, windsurfers, kite surfers, fishermen. And I started up the southeast region, in which they expanded into our region. So I took the lead on that, and then also learned the East Coast all the way to the Great Lakes. So that's the majority of what I do with WeatherFlow is wind forecasting for the eastern half of the United States.
Oh, amazing. What is that one headline that you would describe Florence?
Floods. The headline I would, it's major flooding event would be the headline. So that's, Florence, it doesn't matter. We always have to say it doesn't matter what category with the winds that we're talking about. It's the flooding event that's going to happen. So the storm surge, along with the flooding from the river systems and from the rainfall, all three together, that's the major headline for Florence.
And as I talk about headlines, let me go to the rivers. Which rivers should we be watching out for next in your mind?
For the South Carolina area?
Yes, sir.
Well, we have, I'm not too much into hydrology aspects of it, but I think definitely we need to be watching the PD River, PD Basin, the Ace Basin,
Right.
all the way up to the Waccamaw.
Yeah.
The Saluda and the Broads all come down, they come down state. So the York up from North Carolina, they come down into South Carolina. So there's a lot of different river systems that we saw with the October 2015 flooding,
Right.
that the PD River Basin really got flooded out badly. And so that affected us. We got it all the way into the Edisto River,
Right.
which flooded as well. So the Edisto for Charleston immediately is our main concern.
So, okay, to be continued. Meteorologist Shea Gibson, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.